Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to StarCraft 2 Strategy. Today we're going to be taking a look at a Zerg mirror matchup. Now in this particular replay, our Zerg player is Czech Prime, and our Zerg opponent is Korean. He is Korean, so going into Czech Prime vision here, what we're going to be looking at is taking a little look at the evolution of Zerg vs Zerg play in the metagame and how things have kind of evolved since the game was released. Now obviously in beta there were a lot of changes, so the Zerg vs Zerg play did change over time as patches and unit changes were implemented, but specifically in the current part of the game since release, we're going to talk about how things have changed. Now essentially when the game first came out, what you were seeing a lot of in Zerg vs Zerg matchups was a Speedling Baneling build, and that is because it was very effective. In fact, it still is very effective. But as time went on, people started to realize that, hey, if I go for a Roach heavy build, I can actually do really well against Speedlings and Banelings. The main goal in a Roach build is just to make sure you don't get fully surrounded, to micro properly against the Speedlings. Banelings don't do all that well against Roaches whatsoever, so if you can micro your Roaches properly against Speedlings, you can actually do really well with Roaches in a Zerg vs Zerg against someone who's going for Speedling Baneling. Now, with that in mind, if you can take advantage of the fact that your opponent is going Roaches for a Roach heavy build, as opposed to your Speedling Baneling build, and you can fend off those Roaches and tech up to Aspire and get some Mutalisks really quickly, obviously you're going to be in a huge advantage because Roaches will not hit Mutalisks, not in this life and not in the next. It just doesn't work that way. So keep that in mind, and one of the great things about this matchup is you can really utilize Overlords to their full effectiveness, except for the main base and the expansion. For a good portion of the beginning game, you can really use Overlords to get forward scouting. The only thing you have to worry about is a Queen, but you can spot basically all attack paths from your opponent with Overlords to see when they're coming, and you can properly prepare for a push from Roaches. And if you can defend against that and tech up to Spire and get some Mutalisks, you're going to be in a really strong position. And that's essentially what we're going to be looking to do. We're going to start off with that strong opening and Speedling Baneling. In seeing that our opponent's going to be going for heavy Roaches, we're going to then transition into Mutalisks. So beginning build order, what we saw here was a 14 Extractor followed by a 14 spawning pool, getting that gas first so that we can get that Speedling upgrade right away. As soon as that spawning pool popped up, we got that Queen at 16 supply and then the 19 supplies, and we're going to start researching that Metabolic Boost. So again, starting out with that really strong build of that Speedling Baneling, we're going to move into our opponent's base, and we are going to see that he is going for Roaches, and that's when we're going to prepare for our defense and transition. Now, this is what I talked about earlier. You fully utilizing these Overlords until they get Hydras or until they get Mutalisks. You don't have to worry about anything as long as you're not in their main base and aren't going to get sniped by the Queen. Take advantage of that. Get full vision of any attack paths your opponent's going to have to your base, so you can be prepared for when they're coming. So again, we are going for that Speedling Baneling build. This Banelings Nest went down at 22 supply. And then from here, we're just going to play around with this, see what we can do, attempt to push into our opponent's base and do as much damage as possible. Moving forward, clearly he sees the attack because of his forward Overlord, but that's fine. We're just going to poke in and see what he has specifically, try to get some scouting information in regards to buildings and stuff. Now, fortunately, he did outnumber us there in Zerglings, so we don't want to engage quite yet because we will lose that particular fight. Back at the base at this point, we're basically just going to be pumping out a bunch of Speedlings, getting ready for our push. Also preparing for a possible transition and dropping this Extractor. At the moment, we don't really need that much gas, but in transitioning to a Lair, we will eventually. So as you can see, we've morphed in some Speedlings here. I'm going to attempt to push into our opponent's base at this point, and essentially what you look to do, pretty obvious, in the Speedling Baneling build, you try to take out their economy with the Banelings as well as their massive Zerglings. Now at this point, we're kind of in a tough spot because he is going to actually be pushing out against us. We're kind of forced to pull back with our Zerglings in order to deal with it. We have started to try to drone up, so we're not going to have a defense unless we pull our Zerglings back. He's kind of forced us at this point to stop being offensive in a counterattack with his own Speedlings. Now once we take this out, we're going to try to push out and counterattack as well, but again, obviously we have to defend against this because even this small amount of Zerglings in comparison to ours, it'll take out our mineral line no problem because we didn't have any defense back at our base. So something else to note, if you're pushing out against your opponent and you see they're going for a counterattack, be wary of what's going on. If you realize you don't have enough at your base, then you need to pull back to your base and be prepared to defend. Now, with our forward Overlords that we've been using to get sight of all those attack paths, we now see this Roach heavy build, and this is where we have to this is where we have to transition. We are basically forced to transition at this point, because if we don't, we're going to be in a crap load of trouble. Now that Lair tech, we started researching that at 31 supply, and as soon as that comes up, we are going to be dropping our Spire almost immediately. But in order to properly prepare for this and defend against this, we're going to need to get some spine crawlers down, because these Speedlings and Banelings aren't going to be enough to take out this Roach heavy army, and we can see precisely what he has. Something else to be wary of, and something else to be mindful of, is the fact that he's dumped a lot of Espion into all of these Roaches. This is a very good scenario for us, because at this moment we don't know if he's going for a Spire, but we do know that he's used a lot of Espion gas. And that's great, because in doing so, if we can use that same amount of Espion gas that we've collected ourselves on getting these Mutalisks through this Spire, then we're going to be in a great spot. The key thing is to be able to defend against this, so it's really important. Sacrifice some of your drones, get up tons of spine crawlers if you can, because really, again, just massing up Speedlings and Banelings isn't going to do that much against these Roaches. As long as he can micro properly, as long as he's smart enough to micro his units and also back them up into any corners so that you can't get a full surround, it's just not physically possible, then you're just going to lose your units and you're not going to do too much damage to them. So preparing for this properly is going to involve getting down some spine crawlers and getting up the Spire as quickly as possible. And again, realize mentally that you're in a good position, because he spent Vespian gas on these Roaches, and that's less gas that he's going to have for any Mutalisks that he could possibly be teching up to. So as soon as our Spire comes up, what we're going to do is start getting some Mutalisks right away. We've been saving up our Vespian gas so that we can pump out as many as possible. As soon as it pops up, we're going to be able to get 5 right away. And this is going to put us in a really good spot. You can see the push coming out, huge mass of Roaches. Clearly at this point now you know for sure he definitely does not have any Mutalisks coming. He just has way too many Roaches. He spent way too much gas on this. You don't have to worry about that. So all you have to do at this point is defend against these Roaches. As soon as your Mutalisks come out, it's pretty much game over. He's moving forward at this point. Spine Crawler is going to be picking off. Use the transfuse ability if you have the energy for your spine crawlers, if you have the energy on your queen. And as you can see, even though he's done a ton of damage to the front defense with these Mutalisks on the board, he realizes it's a good game, because he's going to lose all of his Roaches. We're going to push out into his base, and as you can see, he has absolutely nothing to prepare for it. And you may say, well, there was no scouting done. We didn't actually see his base, so how do we know that there were no Mutalisks coming? I'll go back to the fact that in seeing such a heavy Roach army, you know that a lot of gas has been put into that, and you just know it's not possible that he's going to have the tech and the resources necessary to get Mutalisks to counter yours. So at that point, if you can defend against this Roach push, you know that you have won the game. And you may ask about expansions. Again, using the Overlord to our advantage, we saw that there was no expansion at the natural, so we know that the game is over as soon as we defend and get these Mutalisks out. So going to go over that build order real quick. Started off with that 14 Extractor, followed up with a 14 Spawning Pool. 16 supply, as soon as that Spawning Pool came up, we get that Queen. 19 supply, started researching that Metabolic Boost. 22 supply, we went for a Banelings Nest here, opening with that Speedling Baneling. When we tried to push against our opponent, he did go for a counterattack, so we made sure we were able to properly defend by pulling our units back. Also at that point, we saw that there's a pretty Roach heavy army. And then shortly thereafter, we saw a very Roach heavy army with our forward Overlords. At that point, our Lair tech was just about finished, so we immediately went for our Spire, preparing properly with the defense in all of these spine crawlers. And then again, once defending that and once these Mutalisks come out, you're pretty much going to win the game at that point if he's going this heavily into Roaches. So once again, guys, this has been Force StarCraft 2 strategy. If you guys like our videos and you like what we're doing here, then please do go ahead and subscribe to our channel. Keep watching and keep owning, guys.
It's definitely a smart idea. So again, we're doing the exact same thing that we've been doing all game, pulling in, hitting his economy, and then moving out once he moves in forces. And we're going to continue to do this because it will continue to be effective. Now the other great thing about the speed and mobility of these units, of the Speedling and the Mutalisk, is it really does force your opponent into a contained sort of